Welcome to another installment of r/Prorevenge, where getting back at someone is not only an option, but encouraged. If you enjoy these Reddit stories, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you're new here, welcome. I make videos compiling Reddit stories from all sorts of different subreddits. As always, let me know which story you enjoyed the most, and feel free to suggest a subreddit you think I should visit. Now let's move on to the first story of the day, which was posted by You Might Know Me, Mate. I froze my psycho neighbor out of her apartment. In college, my two friends and I decided to find a place together off campus. We found a beautiful 3-bedroom house with surprisingly affordable rent. The basement of the house was listed as a separate apartment, but as it had a separate entrance and the indoor stairwell had been blocked off, we weren't worried. And the thermostat was upstairs. And then the demon neighbor moved in. From upstairs, we could hear everything. This adult woman would call her mother and scream at her to pay for her cell phone bills and give her grocery money, aka Taco Bell and cheap tequila. She would scream at whatever guy she was sleeping with to bring her meth. And one day, she brought home 3 puppies to scream at too. We were terrified of this woman, and the noise was heck. Also, we'd been idiotic enough to sign a lease stating we were responsible for all utilities, period. Meaning we were now financing her gas, water, and electric. But with only 2 months left on the lease, we thought we could just ride it out. But then she started smoking, constantly. According to the landlord, she'd quit for good when she signed the lease. But for good only lasted 2 days. Since it was winter, the heat was running early 24/7, and the smoke was wafting up the vents. Our apartment and all our belongings began to reek with smoke. We contacted the landlord because we'd signed for a bloody non-smoking apartment. He told us we lived in a state where you could technically call an apartment non-smoking even if it shared ventilation with a smoking apartment. F you leasing laws. At this point, my 2 roommates were heading out for a 2-week vacation. They were online students while I was residential, leaving me alone in the apartment with the demon smoker in the basement. I couldn't eat or sleep because my idiotic stomach decided to react to all the secondhand smoke by aching and cramping constantly. After 3 days, I was a little insane, so I made a plan. I checked the forecasts, low in the 20s all week. I borrowed a friend's ultra insulated sleeping bag. I bought one of those ski masks with the holes for your eyes and mouth. I got out my stocking cap, my silk long underwear, my woolen socks, and my down parka. I bought tea, hot cocoa, and ramen, and prepared to live off a diet of hot liquids. And then I turned off the effing heat. Day 1. She's screaming at her mother for forcing her to move into this frozen poop hole of an apartment. Day 2. She's screaming at her boyfriend because he won't let her move in with him. Day 3. She's screaming at the landlord about how she's effing freezing. Day 4. The landlord is at my door. I greet him in full ski mask, parka, stocking cap array, looking like I'm about to rob Santa Claus at the North Pole. He asks me if I don't find it a little chilly in the house. I reply I found all the cigarette smoke a little warm. Day 5. She's screaming about the B words upstairs to anyone who will listen. And I'm sitting upstairs clutching my car keys and my pepper spray with 911 typed into my phone. She finally decides she's effing leaving and moving in with Greg, even though he just got out for stabbing Travis and he lives in that effing creepy house in the woods with all those a-hole biting dogs. Day 6. She's gone. I silently bless Greg. Moral of the story. There's a bloody reason the rent seems too good to be true. P.S. For those wondering, I did have a friend who worked plumbing stop by to give me some advice about how low I could go before I burst the water pipes to heck and back. The most surprising thing about this story isn't about the landlord being shady, because that happens everywhere. It's that when OP opened the door, he had the balls to ask if she was feeling cold, despite seeing her dressed like she was about to rob Santa Claus. Our next story was posted by Mr. 010. Fire me before I quit? I'll ruin your life. Since I'm still in school, I took a job at a bakery of types which I won't name. The place has bread in the name, but also sells overpriced salads and sandwiches. I worked there for close to a year where I had this boss named Betty, not her real name of course. Betty and I didn't get along whatsoever. She had gotten the previous general manager to quit because she had an affair with him, and she threatened to tell his wife if he didn't leave. He quickly left the job and she was promoted to the position. I didn't like her, but I have to respect the dedication to be the general manager of a small store. When I first started working there, I was respectful, but she would do things that would get on my nerves. For instance, I would clean all the plates I would be hired to do, and once I was done and relaxed for maybe 5 minutes, she would run out of the manager's office screeching, "Why aren't you working?" I would tell her of course I did my job, and as a cashier, if nobody is there to help, then I didn't have anything to do. She would glare at me, and then I would see her accidentally drop an entire pot of brewed coffee onto the freshly mopped floor for me to clean. So I quickly learned to always look busy. Once she realized I was going to kneel and kiss the floor she walked on, she started dropping my hours. The store ran on a Game of Thrones type politics for who got promoted and raises. Somehow, all her friends were managers and would bully the rest of us. She was barely at work. She would drive to my job, clock in just in case corporate decided to check her hours. She was essentially stealing hours. When you clocked in, it printed out a small piece of paper telling you when you clocked in. She would just drop them on the floor for me to clean up. I would usually pick them up and stick them into my pocket. So this led to me finding Betty's clock in and out stubs in my pocket at my house. This will be important for later. Did I mention she was super racist? She was white and most of the staff were my fellow high school peers who were all mostly people of color. One day at work, she walked out and told us, "When you're on the clock, I own you." When we all reacted to look at her, she backpedaled and was like, "I didn't mean it like that." This will be important for later. So after a while, I got sick of practically begging for hours, so I went to my current job, but decided I merely wanted to drop my hours, which were already barely a day a week. But suddenly, when I got my new job, she scheduled me every single day for an entire week. She never did that even when we were on semi-good terms, so I obviously told her I had a new job and couldn't do this. After that, I went home and called my friend who was still working there to tell him I was going to quit tomorrow. He has a habit of putting his phone on speaker when he's cleaning at work, so Betty overheard this, obviously. The next day I walk in and go through the respectful motions of saying, "Thank you for the opportunity," and blah blah blah. Betty let me get through the entire speech before she said, "Oh yeah, I was meaning to tell you, you're fired." I was so blindsided and pissed, I cussed her out. My mom raised me to treat women with respect, but this effing fat, overweight, hippo-looking B-word pissed me the F off. She's the type of girl to think binge eating was a personality trait. So I left and was mad about being fired before I could quit, but didn't push the issue. I'm only 18 and I already had another job. I wasn't expecting Betty to give me a good reference anyway. I would have completely left it alone if it wasn't for the district manager, Ben, not real name, texting me. The Revenge. He thought I was still working there, so I explained to him I was fired. He was stunned due to the fact that I was a decent employee. He asked why she let me go, and I explained it to him and he was angry. He clarified that she fired me before I quit, and I said yes. He was pissed that she did this and asked if there was anything else she might have done. I kind of just vented to him for a bit. When I told him about the racist remark, he asked if anyone else would collaborate with me. I forgot to mention that she slowly fired and forced people to quit, and replaced them with her friends and family, which according to company policy she couldn't do, something about conflict of interest. I asked all the people who were working that day if they could, and a few said they would, but one did even better. My one coworker, Andy, is convinced he's the next big vlogger, so he always has his phone out or just using audio recording for hours for a chance to catch a funny clip. I've watched his content and let me say it's just super cringe. But turns out he labels each recording by the day and times. So when he checked, he found her making racist remarks. I got a brilliant idea, and with my other fired or coworkers forced to quit, we decided to scour Andy's recordings. We found some great moments of Betty saying controversial things or just being nasty. Like once a guest sneezed on the baked pastries, and when a coworker told her, she laughed it off and said nobody would know. But this wasn't enough for me. I tried to avoid conflict, but when I'm in a situation, I'll follow it through. I looked her up on Facebook and found out she was married. Nobody knew this. So when she had the affair with the other manager and basically blackmailed him, she was also married and cheating. I don't think anyone ever cared enough to find out because she was a nasty old lady. So I found the old manager's, Mark, Facebook and found out he and his wife were separated. Turns out, even after he quit, Betty was still trying to blackmail money out of him. When he didn't, she told his wife anyway, causing his wife to divorce him and basically leaving him to go back to live with his parents. I did some research, and in my state, blackmail or extortion is a third-degree penalty, which has a max of 7 years in prison, with a fine of over 10K to the victim. So I told my old manager what my plan was for her. He agreed to call the cops on her, but I asked if he'd wait until I finished my part first. He said he'd give me a week. So I met with the district manager, Ben, and showed him all our evidence. The recording and the written statements from my ex-coworkers and people who were still working there. I also gave Ben the slips of paper when Betty clocked in and then left and returned 8 to 10 hours later to clock out. Ben thanked me for the information and then I left. A few days later, while walking past the store, I noticed it was closed in the middle of the day. I texted a guy who still worked there and he told me everything. Turns out, Ben first checked the security cameras to see if she was there for the full time she claimed to be. Big surprise, she wasn't. So Ben decided to investigate the store's expenses. Since she's lying about her time, what else could she be stealing? He found out she was stealing money from the store. The guy didn't fully explain how she was, but just that she was. Turns out she was breaking a lot of health and safety codes and used the money for repairs and etc. for herself. So she was fired immediately, along with all her minions, and that left barely anybody to run the store. They shut down to clean up the store and fix things she didn't make. So she's out of a job, and Mark told her husband with photo proof. Granny nudes, I know. That she cheated on him. But Mark phrased it so it seemed like she still was. So Betty's husband flips out and decides to divorce her. And Betty is the type to post everything on Facebook. So she's begging someone to let her stay, but all of her friends and family totally bailed on her. So she was living in her car looking for a job. That's when Mark decides to sue her for extortion. She scrambles to find a lawyer, and to make it even worse, the company decided to sue her for all the money she stole, and plus all the repairs and lost revenue while the store is closed. Betty's life is over. She had to sell her car for drastically under what it's worth to pay for all the legal trouble. Mark told me bits and pieces of her crying in the courtroom, but not too much. I was never super close to him. Last I heard of Betty is she was living with her sister, who definitely hates her. To think she would have avoided all of this if she just let me quit. TLDR, my manager fired me before I could quit. So I got her fired, divorced, and sued for extortion and fraud. Damn OP, this teeters on nuclear revenge. You went after her job, you went after her marriage, you went after her whole life. I'm glad I don't know you, because I would hate to have a small disagreement turn into a life-changing event. That concludes this episode of r/Prorevenge. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe, as this all really helps my channel grow and pushes me to create more videos. Also, I'll be posting videos every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, so turn on notifications to be notified for my next video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.